Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Data Advisor's webinar today, Data Orchestration, 3 key components every fraud leader should know. My name is Alex New, VP of Product Marketing here at Data Advisor, and I will be your host today. First, let's go through some of the housekeeping items really quick. This webinar will be recorded. A link to the recording will be sent to all attendees afterwards. And the audience is muted. Please submit your questions using the Q&A panel. We'll address some of the questions towards the end of the webinar. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, let us know using the chat. All right, a quick introduction of Data Advisor for those who are not familiar with us. Data Advisor provides an end-to-end fraud and risk SaaS platform that is powered by AI and advanced machine learning for financial institutions and large organizations to combat different types of frauds, all in real time. We empower our customer to fight fraud in a much more proactive manner with automation, efficiency, and scalability, thereby achieving the best detection result and max ROIs. Just a quick intro of today's agenda. First of all, we'll cover the key components every leader should know, which are data source agnostic architecture, real-time data transformation and computation, and also orchestrating third-party signals. For every key component, we'll be discussing what the problem and challenges are, solutions to address those, as well as the corresponding benefits. After that, we'll be discussing how Data Advisor is addressing those challenges around data orchestration. Towards the end, as discussed, we'll address some of the questions from the audience if time permits. With that, I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Daniel Lineberger. Daniel is a solution architect here at Data Advisor. His background includes leading risk operations team for American Express, covering both cardholder and merchant risk, developing business intelligence automation, and leading platform integrations for financial institutions and enterprise customers. With that, I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name's Daniel Lineberger, Solution Architect at Data Advisor. I spent the last maybe 6 or 7 years in a wide range of disciplines, whether it's risk operations, business intelligence, and more recently in platform integration. So today's topic around data orchestration, I feel is a really powerful one. But yet inherently, it's not really a new problem, right, for enterprises and financial institutions. Yet these same institutions find themselves on the back foot when really trying to develop a holistic view of their customers and their members to establish effective controls against fraud, AML and credit risk screening. And so, as this concept and this topic of data orchestration comes up, it always makes me think about a quote I saw on Gartner one time. And the quote really emphasizes the strategic importance of being able to develop a customer-centric focus to fraud detection. So having visibility into and transaction monitoring across different products and different channels into a single platform. And really the emphasis is at the end of this quote where it's a single platform. And so what do we really mean by a single platform? Really what we're talking about is a centralized platform, a centralized intelligence where you have a single repository of all the different types of signals and intelligence that an enterprise or a financial institution might be collecting into a central repository. And so how does data orchestration facilitate a centralized intelligence platform? What allows us to source in all of these different data elements or signals or intelligence that might be happening across a customer or a member's life cycle. So whether that's upstream at the beginning of a life cycle around new account opening or account origination, or sourcing in, from core banking system or digital banking platforms, all the way to third-party signal providers around, KYC and dark web data. Being able to source all of this data into one platform, one holistic repository of intelligence that can allow you to develop more effective fraud controls for fraud prevention, AML, credit, just to name a few. And all of those support the overarching use cases, whether it's customers looking to target onboarding fraud or debit credit, ACH and wire, being able to have this holistic look across the entire member lifecycle to tackle these different use cases has never been more crucial. And so as we develop this concept of centralized intelligence, I want to take a step back and really dive deeper into what centralized intelligent platform really means. And so at its core, it's really connecting these disparate data sources into a unified or a holistic and comprehensive repository to allow more informed decision making. And as I think about a centralized intelligence concept, an example that always comes to my mind, although somewhat simplistic, I think it's powerful and drives the point home where, especially in financial institutions, they might have more fraud controls around their online application program. And fraudsters or malicious actors might come into that online channel and continuously try to attempt fraudulent applications and most likely may be denied. But that same fraudster can actually walk into a physical branch, apply for a very similar type of loan, and get approved instantly. And the financial institution is none the wiser. And it's this intelligence disconnect between online and physical branch or channel to channel that allows fraudsters to continue to thrive and really hurt the bottom line. And so as we think about, enterprises or financial institutions go, wow, we really start to see the importance of having data orchestration capabilities or striving to a centralized platform. And they say, well, great, we're going to start doing it right now. Well, it's not so simple, right? There's some really key challenges when trying to tackle modern data orchestration. And so the first challenging is having the capability or finding or leveraging a platform that is truly data source agnostic, right? That has the ability to source in effectively and seamlessly, pull in data into a centralized repository or centralized location to make it more available for fraud prevention efforts. Excuse me. The second challenge is the ability to do this in real time and be able to get real-time data transformation and computation and really drive real-time enrichment of your data. And the third and last challenge we wanted to highlight today is the ability to effectively manage and orchestrate your third-party signals. And so these three challenges kind of sit at the core of some of the obstacles that enterprises and institutions face when trying to move towards a centralized platform. So let's talk about the first challenge, data source agnostic architecture. So looking at this diagram, many of you might be familiar with a diagram that looks very similar, or for some, it may be even somewhat incomprehensible. And inherently, it's the same problem, right? It's these siloed data systems and different versions and different legacy systems that make up an enterprise or a financial institution's backend that support a wide range of different use cases, whether it's Zelle or wire transfers, ACH, check deposit. It's the fact that these different systems don't communicate with one another. There's no shared intelligence, activity or fraudulent activity that might be happening in these different kind of database silos. There's no sharing of that intelligence to different operations teams, different automated decisioning capabilities. Everything exists in a silo. And the reason why this is so painful to institutions or enterprises is it because it continuously allows fraudsters to take advantage of what most could consider their primary or their best tool. And that is for fraudsters to continuously attack each silo or each solution one after the other with the guarantee they can almost bet that an institution or an enterprise is going to have these fragmented views of their fraud attacks. Their fraud prevention efforts are even fragmented. And it's because whether you're talking ACH or application or, Zelle or anything like that, they can almost guarantee that things that they might be doing in each of these different types of use cases or solutions, none of that intelligence is being shared across teams, across use cases, and there's not really effective fraud controls being established with this shared intelligence. And so these non-commutative databases, these non-commutative systems allow the fraudster to continue to exploit each of these systems one by one, and then they can go back and repeat it and almost guarantee that they're going to face very minimal resistance when trying to do these types of activities. And so how do you tackle a problem like this? How do you get around the fact that fraudsters are using this mechanism to continuously attack different types of institutions and enterprises? Well, and really that's building and having a centralized platform that has data agnostic at its heart, right? And to be able to connect in any of these types of formats or data into a standard ingestion method. So if we stop for a minute and think about the different types of formats and protocols that we might recognize within our own enterprises, right? Maybe we're talking about Nacha for ACH or X9 files for check. Maybe we have data lakes or data warehouses that we're doing CSV or extracts out or JSON, and in the same time, in parallel, those same data sources within an enterprise or a financial institution, they're leveraging, a wide range of different types of protocols or sources. So whether they're doing, API communications to REST APIs, or they're using SFTP, FTP, or using asynchronous message queues. It's these wide-ranging different types of formats, sources, and protocols that can make it very challenging for enterprises and financial institutions to effectively manage their data and create this centralized platform. And so how do you go about solving for this, right? And that's really building the capability to build these out-of-the-box data connectors and data transformers to look at these different formats and protocols and develop very standard and streamlined transformation efforts that allow a platform to essentially build a unified and consistent data schema within one central repository and make that integration component extensible to accommodate these different data sources. And so once you start having this data source agnostic capability, and you start deploying this and leveraging a platform with these capabilities, what are some of the benefits that you typically can find, right? Well, obviously, if we start sourcing everything into one location, one centralized platform where we can share the intelligence that is happening within these different solutions and piping that into a single database, essentially, then you give your teams, your risk operations, your strategy teams, your decision science teams, you give them that holistic view of what's happening within an enterprise or what's happening within a financial institution. And it allows them to develop strategies that have higher detection accuracy. It allows you to reduce your overall fraud and really start to develop more cost-effective operations and more efficient operations overall. The second key challenge when thinking about moving towards a centralized platform for risk evaluation and how data orchestration plays a hand in that is the ability to support real-time data transformation and computation. And when we talk about real time, right, it's a big topic, right? Everything is moving towards real time, the ability to do low latency, high throughput, quick processing, use cases around RTP and then, mobile check deposits, everything is moving towards real time. But the reality is most systems, most enterprises, most financial institutions don't have real-time capabilities in most sense. They're still relying on a batch processing setup where they can't generate any type of real-time interdiction. And so obviously the impacts are going to be, they have a delayed reaction to fraud. Most cases, organizations might be doing 24-hour batches, and even maybe in best cases, they're doing 4-hour batches. But in this day and age where we're making funds instantly available to, end customers, delayed fraud detection is almost a death sentence at that point, because if we're starting to not be able to make decisions after holds are being lifted on accounts and funds are being released, we're behind the ball at that point. Also, there can be a ton of data quality issues, high infrastructure costs, manual efforts to manage these batch processing jobs internally. And all of it really culminates into an ability to not have this centralized platform, not be able to make real-time interdiction, and actually really kind of cut fraudsters off far upstream, especially during loan application process and things like that, or get into the middle of transaction monitoring to make real-time decisioning. And so how do you approach a solution, and how do you approach real time? Well, it's finding a platform and finding capabilities that support a real time first architecture, right? So it's the ability to support both batch and real time data in a hybrid model if necessary, where we can actually join that data in together and make those disparate data sources and those different ingestion methods available at the same time in one location. And as that data is coming in from these different data sources, having the ability to clean and correct, transform, and normalize that data on the fly is crucial in ensuring more rapid time to value and ability to get more use cases up quicker, because you don't necessarily have to take on the lift upstream on the enterprise side. We can clean and correct the data for you. The third component is the ability to, and this is kind of an important distinguishing factor when we say real time. It's not so much about processing speed, right? It's the ability, it's not just about processing. It's the ability to actually generate enrichment data, complex enrichment data via velocity features and aggregations, graph analytical features, to be able to generate these complex enrichment signals in a real-time setting is that differentiator, where it's not just saying, hey, we can process a high number of transactions very quickly. It's the ability to generate that enrichment intelligence in that same manner. And how you support that is having a scalable architecture that can support high throughput, low latency, be flexible, have auto scaling capabilities for data volume, and be able to support that while generating those complex enrichment features. And so the benefits you start getting from this is the ability to react faster to fraud, right? Your risk operations and strategy teams can quickly deploy new complex, rich enrichment features, right? And quickly backtest them within minutes and be able to deploy those in fraud strategy and be able to react faster to changing fraud schemes. You have reduced resources. You don't have to allocate as many resources to manage and work on the ETL pipelines to clean and correct your own data. And you don't have to have to accept that you're just not going to be able to respond quick enough to some of these fraud use cases. So you don't have to commit, or you don't have to accept that you can let things slip through. You can really have that real-time interdiction capability for those use cases that are, extremely tight SLAs. The last key that we wanted to highlight regarding data orchestration and how it plays into a centralized platform is the ability to orchestrate third-party signals. And why is this important? Well, in a lot of our customers, a lot of legacy systems, enterprises and financial institutions have a very manual, very painful way of managing these different third-party signals or point solutions. And they have no way of really understanding at which point they should be calling these different data sources or solutions, and where do those signals really add value at what moment. And ultimately, the default is that customers end up just calling out every single time. It's very common, especially where data, internal business data within an institution or enterprise, maybe not as readily available for certain types of use cases, especially farther upstream on a customer's life cycle. They really rely on calling out to these data sources every single time, but have no real meaning or way to decide when these signals actually provide value to the underlying fraud or prevention controls that these support. And it can, again, and they may only be able to source in a few signals, and to make any types of changes or reconfigure this can be a very painful process. And so how do you effectively manage your third-party signals, especially when there's a cost factor at play? It's never been more crucial to have savings or reduce your total cost of ownership, right? And so with a centralized intelligence platform, now you no longer have to call out every single time to one of these vendors, manually, maintain the signal ingestion into your enterprise. You can leverage a platform to then call out and orchestrate on your behalf to these different signals providers and source in that intelligence into a single platform. And the ability to have these dynamic decision flow capabilities where end strategy teams or risk operation teams can decide at what moment during a risk process or a friction process should we actually reach out to these third-party providers and draw in some of these signals, whether it's AML KYC related watch list screening, or maybe you're going out to dark web data or something like an Akata or email age to pull in email data, phone data. When are those signals actually providing value along a customer's life cycle where it actually makes sense to undergo that cost to make that call out in the first place? And the nice thing is with these decision flow capabilities, you can actually leverage a rules first approach. You can leverage rules decisioning so that you don't have to, use these signals up front, and you can actually push out different types of events or activity that don't ever need to even go through these types of screenings. And so you can leverage that to reduce your total cost of ownership. And so the benefits of this are really simple. One, you're increasing your automation. You can let a platform do the orchestration for you and manage that relationship with that third-party vendor and bring those signals in and reduce that lift, especially for newer integrations that you might be onboarding into the enterprise or into the financial institution. You can leverage a centralized platform to automate that for you. Automation obviously comes with, resource management and reduced resources. You don't have to allocate resources to manage that relationship with that third party. You don't have to manage the sourcing of the signals and changes. A platform that's centralized can manage that for you. And really all that relates to is just a reduced cost of ownership. Whether it's as simple as, hey, we don't have to make as many calls out per year as we were before, or we just don't have to allocate as many headcount or as many resources to manage our third parties. All of it has that added benefit, and some of these three are some of the most important ones, I think, to highlight. And so as we talk about these three components, right, these three crucial elements of data orchestration and how it ties into building a centralized platform, we want to highlight how DataVisor approaches data orchestration. And so if you look at our product stack, and we're talking about all the different use cases that we support, if you look at the bottom, you see, well, data orchestration is the foundation of what we do here at DataVisor, right? We use our out-of-the-box API integrations and connectors and the ability to transform data on the fly to help reduce lift to our customers. It allows us to quickly source in internal data, third-party data from those signal providers that we were just talking about, or whether we're using our own device fingerprinting solution to look at device fingerprinting risk or device risk overall. We can source all of that data in and power our upstream modules like our complex or our a very robust feature engineering platform to derive those complex velocities and aggregations on the fly and deploy them in minutes. And all of that data supports our different, rules engines and UML, SML capabilities, our case management and graph analytics offering. All of that supports those underlying use cases that you see here, and just naming a few, from transaction fraud to promo abuse, account protection, with many more use cases, right? But ultimately, data orchestration sits at the foundation of what DataVisor does. And so some of the core elements that we focus on around data orchestration and controlling how data comes into our platform, first is flexibility, right? The ability to support that hybrid and real-time batch modes, and be able to join that data in together. Second is an AI-driven mentality, right? I'm not sure if some of you may have already seen one of our more recent launches for our AI Copilot, but DataVisor is really taking that AI first driven approach where we're starting to integrate more components of our platform with generative AI to assist in data mapping and feature generation and rule tuning. So if you haven't had a chance to look at DataVisor's recent AI Copilot launch, I would heavily encourage you to reach out to us and learn more. We can provide the webinar as well, because it's a really exciting kind of launch in terms of the next generation of a platform. And we make all of that available in a low code, no code environment where end user teams no longer have to have a complex knowledge and a really robust knowledge of coding and coding background. They can easily use a low code, no code environment to develop these complex features and enrichment data to enhance their own fraud prevention controls. And lastly is again taking that step and being there as a partner to our customers where we orchestrate that third-party data with out-of-the-box connectors to our signal providers. And so diving a little bit deeper, you can see here, starting from left to right, we source in all of that different data, right? Transactions, applications, label data, to complete the feedback loop, third-party data. And we can do it in real time. We can do it in batch. And we deploy those out-of-the-box connectors to ultimately translate it into our very standard REST APIs. From there, we can migrate everything and we push everything through a transformation layer where we actually expose this transformation capability to our end users that can clean and correct their own data on the fly, and also reach out to DataVisor for out-of-the-box, transformation needs as well. And all of that is made available through a feature engineering platform, again, with a ton of robust capability to generate more enrichment data and ultimately power the downstream modules for ML and scorecards, case management, graph visualizations to generate those auto decision and manual decision efforts. And we just want to quickly highlight some of the signal partners that we've been working with regarding AML and KYC. And so, things like Comply Advantage or Dow Jones, or, working with FinTrack and FinCEN for SAR filing, Twilio, Q6 for dark web intelligence. These are just some of the out-of-the-box integrations that we're working with. And it's really allowed our customers to put, a lot of the effort on DataVisor to manage those orchestration capabilities. I quickly just want to wrap up with a case study. We found this, with one of our more recent customers, and we really wanted to highlight this because we thought this was a great way to show the capability of the DataVisor platform. And so it's actually focuses around the fact that when you start thinking about malicious activity far upstream, right? You think about malicious signups and applications, but we all know that translates to a significantly amount more of fraudulent transactions. And so this customer was having a huge increase in fraudulent signups, and which was leading to like 4 to 5 more X on their fraudulent transactions. And it's because they couldn't effectively identify the stolen information, the synthetic IDs, and they had no way to tie in any type of real-time KYC enrichment data. And after deploying the DataVisor solution and leveraging these capabilities that we've been talking around third-party orchestration, we've been effectively able to reduce their downstream fraudulent transaction activity. In the course of 20 days, we were able to see about a 50% reduction in their fraudulent transaction just by being able to attack that upstream use case around applications and sign up. Awesome. So I think we're transitioning into just a brief Q&A, so I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Thank you, Daniel. Very insightful. So because of time, we probably just covered 2 questions. So the first question I want to address is from the audience today. Does DataVisor currently support call-outs to third-party APIs for data enrichment?
Yeah. So data, as part of that data orchestration capability within DataVisor, we support the ability to develop those API connections to third-party signals where we can actually make that call out, retrieve the signals back in a real-time manner, and tie those signals back into the request that you're making to our platform. And we do all of that in real time, and all of that data enrichment is available to those downstream modules that we support, like our rules engine or our machine learning, so SML or UML capabilities. All of that can be orchestrated through API callouts to those third-party signals.
Great. Another question from the audience. Can you discuss a little bit more about out-of-box data connectors DataVisor built?
Yeah, so DataVisor looked at all, we really looked deep at all the different types of data, that enterprises or financial institutions, typically want to solve for from a use case standpoint, and all those different types of data sources. And we found that although there is a wide range of formats and protocols, we were able to develop really standard and flexible real-time data transformations by efforts that we actually make exposable via our UI and that end users can interact with. But by developing these very standard, integration connectors or real-time transformation connectors, just by supporting JSON and CSV and Nacha and X9 and ISO 222, and supporting that in conjunction with a few different protocols, we're actually able to tackle a lot of the different data sources that we highlighted in that jumbled mess of enterprise systems. We were actually able to allow our customers to deploy those transformation components in their real-time and batch pipelines seamlessly with minimal lift.
Great, thanks, Daniel. Can you go to the next slide? So before we wrap up today's session, we'd love to get your feedback so we can improve our webinar series going forward. It will only take around 30 seconds of your time. Just use your phone and scan the QR code here, and I'll pause for 5 seconds so you can do that. All right, great. So thank you all for participating in today's webinar. Your time is greatly appreciated. A very special thanks goes out to our speaker, Daniel, for sharing valuable insights on the topic of data orchestration. So if you have any additional questions or wish to discuss challenges related to data orchestration and explore how DataVisor can assist you, feel free to send us an email at info@datavisor.com or submit a demo request through our website, datavisor.com. We look forward to continuing the conversation and assisting you in any way we can. At the same time, please stay tuned for our next webinar after holidays. Thank you all, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.